Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Week 63's Word Nerd Wednesday. Now, as I try to do on Word Nerd Wednesdays, or at least have tried to do, I'm taking a look at a word or two from the other episodes that week or from the previous week and do a deep dive. And this time, I'm going back to last week's reading from the Akallabêth on Silmarillion Saturday, and I'm going to do some more nerdery on a lot of the names that we came across. Now, we'll look at these mostly in the order that we came across them in last Saturday's reading, starting with the 20th king, who we read ascended the throne in the name of Adunakor, Lord of the West. Okay, so that's precisely what that Adunaic name means. Now, the R prefix that we're going to see going forward for the kings of Númenor is the Adunaic equivalent of the Quenya tar prefix, meaning high. But abandoning the Elvish tongues means dropping Quenya elements and replacing them with Adunaic ones. Well, mostly, as we'll see. So the first element in his name should sound very familiar to you. Adun means west, and even though it is Adunaic, it's derived from Sindarin dun, west, and is cognate with Quenya Andune. Now, since the name is translated for us as Lord of the West, we can deduce that the core element means Lord. Now, over at eldamo.org, that's Elvish data model, it's suggested that it may be related to the primitive Elvish root ker, meaning rule, govern, possess. Now, of course, Mr. I don't want Elvish in my presence is still superstitious enough that he gives himself a Quenya name in the scrolls, Tar Herunumen. Now, it means the exact same thing. Numen is west, and Heru is lord, like in Ondaher, Stone Lord, and deriving from that same primitive root, Ker. In the meantime, can I just point out how incredibly brazen and shamelessly blasphemous this name is? The Valar were called the Lords of the West, and sometimes Manwë had the individual title Lord of the West because of his role. So for this man to call himself that, well, it's a thing, but let's move on. Now, the text goes from him straight to the 23rd king, Ar-Gimilzor, and his name is a bit of a challenge. In the Notion Club papers found in Sauron Defeated, we see that the Adunaic name of the first king of Númenor, Elros himself, was Gimilzor. Gimel means stars, so it seems likely that Gimilzor is a translation of Elros's Sindarin name, which means star foam. But those writings date to the mid-40s, and it's in the later writings that Gimilzor is the name not of Elros, but of the 23rd ruler of Númenor. And we don't know if the name retains that original meaning. Now, we don't see it here, but in the line of Elros, we are given the Quenya name placed in the rolls, Telemnar, which means silver fire. So, the question is, does Gimilzor also mean silver fire now? Or are his Adunaic and Quenya names unrelated? By the way, his Quenya name was also shared by the 26th king of Gondor, Telemnar, the one who died in the plague in 1636, along with his children. Now, we switch briefly to the faithful in the reading. The lords of Andúnie descended from Silmarillion, she who should have been the first ruling queen back when agnatic primogeniture kept her from the throne. Now, her name appears to use the Quenya element Silma, meaning silver shining white, as in the Silmarils, and the feminine ending IEN. We're then told about two of her descendants, Inzilbeth and her mother Lindorie. Now, Lindorie is a Quenya name that we're not clearly given a meaning for, but the first element is likely derived from Linde, meaning singing or song, as in Lindon, land of music, Laurelin, song of gold. But Inzilbeth, her daughter, has an Adunaic name. Now, of course, thanks to the persecution of the faithful, they're moving away from Quenya names for their own protection. Like the story says, she was, in heart, one of the faithful, being taught by her mother. Her name likely means flower word, as we know that Inzil means flower, and Beth means expression, saying, or word. Now, Ar-Gimilzor married her, and they had two very different sons, Inziladun and Gimilcad. Now, we'll look at Gimilcad first this time. His Adunaic name isn't glossed anywhere, but it contains the same Gimel element that we see in his father's name, Ar-Gimilzor. So if that still means stars, then it's something about stars. Inziladun, well, you should be able to decipher this one by now on your own. I just talked about Inzil meaning flower, and earlier today we saw the element dun meaning west. So, Inziladun, flower of the west. Now, he also had a secret Quenya name not mentioned here, Númelote, meaning flower of the west, from Numen, west, and Lote, flower or blossom. But he took the throne as Tar Palantir, a Quenya name meaning, from Appendix A, far-sighted, or, from the index in Unfinished Tales, he who looks afar. It's a compound made of palan, meaning far, and tir, to watch. Now, we've seen these elements before, of course, in the name of the seeing stones, the palantiri, which means the exact same thing, just plural. And of course, we see the tir element in other places like Minas Tirith, the Tower of Guard. But when Tar Palantir died, Gimilcad's son, Pharazôn, usurps the throne by forcing a marriage with his first cousin, Miriel. Now, we're actually told in Appendix E, under the entry for PH, talking about pronunciations, that the Pharaz element in his name is Adunaic for gold. His name is glossed as golden, so the on appears to be an adjectival suffix, that is, turning the noun gold into the adjective golden. So, like en is in English, gold to golden, the on is in Adunaic. Now, in Quenya, his name was Tar Kalion, which is interesting as it's not a direct translation of golden one. It comes from Kala, light, as in Kalakiria and Kalakwendi, and the patronymic ion suffix, so it means son of light. Now, the name of his wife, the woman who should have been Queen Tarmiriel, means jewel daughter, from Mire, jewel, as in Elendil-Mir, the star of Elendil, Yavanna Mire, the jewel of Yavanna, and then the IEL feminine suffix. It's likely that the Adunaic name given to her by Pharazôn was a translation, but it isn't officially glossed anywhere. And folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. Come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there's a word you want to know more about, please let me know by emailing barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, and a lot more. And join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.